we're going to start.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the October Historic Preservation Commission meeting, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Taylor Fudge. I chair the Historic Preservation Commission. As usual, full agenda. We want to get everyone out of here before the storms come in. So please limit individual conversations and be mindful of your time. Limiting the individual conversations will ensure that commission members and applicants can hear each other. Please remain quiet until you're called upon. And when you do address the commission, please do so up here at the podium. State your name and address for the record. It's really important for us. Before the commission votes on any item, we will ask if anyone from the public wishes to be heard on the particular item being discussed. Speakers are given 3 minutes to relay information to commission members. Please be thorough, but also be mindful of your time. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located on the PrimeGov website. If you're following along online, select agenda on the right-hand side of Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see which item is being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting are posted online and were shared with commission members. At this point, new materials may not be shared with the commission, so if you brought anything new with you today, please leave that at your seat. We cannot accept and review. We just simply don't have the time. So feel free to come up here and share information verbally, but no artifacts. Keith, can you please call roll?
Fudge.
Present.
Jordan.
Present.
Gaines. McBride. Milner.
Present.
Hoare.
Present.
Remy. Whitley.
Present.
Wood. Present. We have quorum.
Excellent. Procedures for today's meeting are noted in the agenda. For anyone who is unfamiliar with the process, please refer to the agenda or to that particular section. However, there are 2 items that we do like to note specifically regarding this process in particular. These involve certificates of appropriateness or CAs and appeals to the Board of Adjustments. Regarding CAs, after an application is approved and the 10-day protest period has expired, the HP officer will mail the CA to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Regarding appeals to the Board of Adjustments, any person who is aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the OKC Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Katie, what news do we have from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer?
I have nothing in particular to report at this time.
Is there anything we need to move other than potentially a light bulb in here?
Oh, no. No, nothing that needs to be moved around on the agenda.
Excellent. Okay, we'll go on to acceptance of the minutes. Have my fellow commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the September meeting? And do we have any questions or perhaps a motion to accept or modify?
I'll motion to accept the September minutes.
Do we have a second? Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Gaines. Please vote in PrimeGov. Oh, I'm sorry.
Daryl, do you mind clicking the skip on
Yes.
whatever that is on that computer? I figured as much. It appears we might be involuntarily refreshing some technology today during the meeting, so my apologies if that causes a delay. We will take a break if everything decides to reboot.
You don't think we'll be out of here in an hour and 18 minutes?
Of course we will.
Okay. All right, looked like the meeting minutes were approved. We will go ahead and move on to code enforcement. Katie, anything from your perspective there?
Nothing particular to report. As always, if you see items in the code enforcement report that anyone has questions about, either the commission or members of the public, you can reach out to HP staff or contact the city's Action Center for more information about those.
Excellent. Let's see, any continuance announcements or requests?
We do not have any continuances on the agenda, and we did not have any new requests for continuances prior to this meeting.
And I am showing no dilapidated structures, no National Register nominations, and nothing on the consent docket.
That is correct.
Okay, well, we'll move straight into cases for individual consideration. We'll start with the first one, HPCA 23-00103 at 930 Northwest 21st Street.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture, for Dana Meister for a certificate of appropriateness to 2, construct new 2-story garage, elective, 3, install new concrete landings elective, 4, install new sidewalk elective, and 5, replace and widen driveway elective. The commission saw this application last month and approved the demolition of the carport garage structure in this location that was not historic. We also noted last month and discussed that this house was moved to this location. It was not originally built in Mesta Park. The applicant has returned with a revised design to the garage to make it a true 2-story, reducing the footprint from what was proposed previously. And we've included the garage or the sidewalk, driveways, et cetera, that not all of those features were noted in the application previously. We have recommended continuance. Some concerns remain regarding the footprint of the garage, justification for a 2-story garage in this location. There are guidelines about under which conditions a 2-story garage is appropriate. And more generally speaking about some of the architectural features and details that may be more visually prominent and high style for a garage than is typical in this area. We don't know what the historic garage associated with this house was, which in that case we tend to look toward other garages in the surrounding district.
Okay. Hello. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Holly Hunt with Sam Gresham Architects, 400 Northwest 23rd Street. Yes, that's exactly what I was going to bring up today. We talked a lot about the historic development of this property and that it was moved in the 70s. So it creates a little bit of a unique circumstance for this garage. The first design we brought, the commission felt like the footprint was just a little bit too large. And based on you all's feedback, I've come up with this second 2-story design that will, again, reduce the footprint. It keeps a very modest rectangular plan, and that would, and I did want to just bring up, as far as that footprint goes, only about almost right at 450 is for garage, and then we have some storage space on the back as well as an entry to the stairs for the second floor. And again, this won't be used as like an income property or an apartment. This is just for their adult children that come to visit. Based on some other feedback, we also scooted the garage back into the interior yard to mitigate parking issues that we had discussed. As far as the style of the garage, I mean, the guidelines definitely talk about garages as being secondary, but it also talks about high style design in garages that match the architecture of the main home, and that's exactly what we've tried to achieve here. I talked last month about us not trying to design for the lowest common denominator in the neighborhood, but trying to design for a garage that would have suited that historic property at its original construction time. Even though it wasn't at this actual property, one would assume that if someone had spent so much effort and time designing a very high architectural style home, that they wouldn't have paired it with a very modest garage. So that's part of the reason we've brought up the 2-story. Again, that was in response to you all and feeling like the footprint needed to scale it down. So that's what we've done. One other thing that I'll mention as far as the block in the neighborhood, this block has a lot of multifamily structures along it. In the aerial shot and as well as photos in the handouts that you have, you see large 2-story structures throughout this block. We also see right next door a large 2-story 3-car garage. So while I have, in the quick turnaround, I didn't have a ton of time to pull together documentation of the neighborhood, but I think even what you see in the packet that the staff has provided, we do have a lot of larger buildings and different buildings than your typical standard single-family homes. So that being said, I feel like this is a design that, given the historic development of the property as well as the high style of the original home, that this 2-story garage would not only fit into the block, but it would really augment the neighborhood at large. So I'd be happy to hear any feedback or thoughts that you may have.
Great. Well, first of all, I was going to ask the question about pushing the garage back to make sure we save part of that driveway, because that was a big part of the conversation, so I'm
Yes,
very
sir.
appreciative of that. It is a very high-style garage. You know, I don't know that I'm necessarily opposed to it, knowing what's, you know, very close to it next door with a really big, I mean, whatever that thing is. It looks like there's three-car garage.
It's a multifamily. Mhm.
Yeah, and the house to the right of it, and that, yeah, that right there. But I guess I'm curious what questions other commissioners have or concerns that they might. I don't know that I have anything major glaring.
And one other thing I just did want to mention, I forgot to, on the garage side, the property to the south, it's quite elevated from our garage. It's like 4 foot above. The finished floor is much higher, maybe even 5. I'm not a surveyor, but based on like just looking at it myself and especially visible here in this picture. So even though we're a 2-story garage, again, it's not going to be massively overtake all the surrounding structures. I just want that to be really clear.
What's the height of the garage compared to the height of the house?
So we're about 10 or 12 feet below the total height of the existing home.
I just wanted to note that there were some neighborhood comments on it. One thing that they cite as a concern in here,
Oh, I didn't receive those.
do you want me to read them?
Yeah,
Is it
do you
okay if I
mind?
read them?
I have just not seen
It just
them.
says, it's from MPNA, and it just says, "We disagree with the staff recommendation, and we recommend a denial of this application. The proposed garage and pavement are completely out of scale for the surrounding area and most of the Mesta Park neighborhood. As you note in the staff report, both are well in excess of the guidelines for building size and potentially use and lot coverage. Further, the garage will be easily visible from both Ollie and 21st for several blocks in both directions on Ollie and to the west on 21st. We believe that further deferral and potentially minor changes will result in a worse outcome for the neighborhood and potentially the applicant than denying the certificate of appropriateness and leaving the applicant the option of applying for something more appropriate." My question within those comments, really probably for Katie, I didn't see anything about lot coverage, and I thought we had discussed it pretty
not even near.
in depth last month, even with the 900 square foot.
Yeah, even with the
footprint.
larger garage, we weren't even approaching 40% of the lot.
Yes,
So
I
there's-
don't have it noted right in front of me, but we were under on lot coverage
Even with
last
that
time,
bigger,
and the
okay.
footprint has reduced
Quite.
significantly.
So that's a non-
The lot coverage is okay.
And then the other thing that she's written in here, or he or she, whomever writes these, it says that they're in excess of the guidelines for the building size and potentially the use. I just am not really understanding and wanted to figure out if you had a,
So Holly and I emailed about that actually today. The floor plan of the garage, which we don't really review because
Right.
it's interior and we're focused on the outside, shows what I believe plan review would consider to be a dwelling. Bathroom, bedroom, kitchen with a stove, fridge, sink, everything. They would consider that to be a second dwelling, which is not allowed in HP or in a standard R1 single-family residential neighborhood.
but that's
can-
not for us to
not the-
It's
to
not
look
for us
at.
to decide, but we
Right.
would want to
And
clarify
that's
that
not a
on.
stove, it's just a little two burner. We can take that out. I mean,
Well, I mean, the
we'll be
bottom line is
sure
it's just
at the
not for
plan
us to review.
Yeah, we'll be sure and mitigate any issues of the design with plan review.
My preference is always to coordinate on that with plan review so that we don't have one set of drawings in a CA and then they won't sign off on it
Correct.
when you go to get a building permit.
So we
But
can
it's
work
not really
with
part of
staff, too.
HP's purview.
Okay, I just
It's-
wanted to
and
get
it's-
clarity that that's,
Just so y'all know, almost every one of these projects that gets approved, at some point, we have to circle back with staff during the building plan review portion and make any adjustments needed for the building permit. So that's pretty standard.
Any other questions, concerns? Staff has recommended a continuance on this particular item.
Yeah, I think I'm just still bothered by the larger footprint. Like, I know it's come down significantly, which is great, and I have no problem with it being 2-story, but it's still like 50% bigger than what we normally allow.
well, if we were still under lot coverage with that 900 square foot footprint, does that 5% rule come into effect here, Katie? Do we have calculations on that?
It would be,
It's definitely bigger, but it might be a bigger lot if we're,
The guidelines don't directly address those additional square footages for like servants' quarters and things. It's a very common aspect of the neighborhood. And I feel like if, you know, everyone else on their garage is able to have a little additional square footage beyond the parking spaces, then my client should as well.
we do have that the carport garage thing was 512 square feet. Now, that was presumably not a historic structure, but we often have some leeway on letting people go back with as big of an accessory structure as they had previously, so that we're not essentially taking away usable square footage. Whether that's an addition that's being rebuilt or a garage being rebuilt. So that might, going up to that size seems certainly
Yeah,
justifiable.
that seems reasonable for sure. But yeah, 660 is what, still 150 square feet larger than that, times 2 stories. But
And you're saying that the 660 is over the 5%?
Well, yes.
Okay.
450 is the number we're trying to hit. 5% of the lot ended up being less than 450 because we don't have, some lots are larger than others. This is not a large lot. But again, we're still, I mean, not only in my opinion, but just by the calculations I've provided, this footprint does suit the property's size. I mean, we have a large backyard still remaining. I took the feedback from last week. We decided stacking square footage made more sense than expanding the main level. So again, I mean, given that this is a unique circumstance, we have lots of 2-story garages in this neighborhood. We have larger structures on this block. It's certainly something that the guidelines support, in my opinion.
So the only other, I'm not opposed to the 2-story. I'm not opposed to the size of it. I'm really not even opposed to my next question. I just want to pose it for consideration for the group. The high-style nature of this particular garage. Is everybody on the commission comfortable with the high-style nature of this garage as it relates to the house and the surrounding area in the neighborhood? It's certainly not typical of what's in the neighborhood. Now, the house is not typical of what's in the neighborhood either. Move there, whatever style that is and all that, but.
I mean, it is extremely different, but and we have no way of knowing what would have been there. But I mean, I do think that if there's ever a unique circumstance, it is kind of that this house was picked up and moved here. So while it's not something I would ordinarily feel on board with in any way, shape, or form, I, of course, would worry about the precedent it sets for other people. But I mean, I think it's a true unique circumstance, in my opinion. So I don't personally have a problem with it, but I do understand the neighborhood comments and staff comments on it.
Okay. Are there any conditions that need to be met on this particular project? And do we want to go ahead and make a motion? Oh, well, before we go there, I'll stop myself. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this particular project? Okay. Well, does anybody want to make a motion on this particular item? Or would anybody, even if you don't like to, would you?
Sorry, I'm noticing that there are some things that we're still missing. The driveway width and concrete finish.
Well, we'll do an aged appearance on the concrete. Sorry, that's just a note that didn't appear on the drawings, but certainly that's to me is considered standard. I would never not.
Okay, and what
age
about the width
appearance
of the
concrete.
driveway?
So it's on the site plan. I wasn't sure what the question there was.
It just says additional information describing width
it
and
just-
concrete finish is lacking.
So basically, it just comes in 6 inches on either side of the garage, which is basically all doors, and the guidelines support a driveway width that matches the doors. So we've done exactly that.
Okay, and then
Holly,
it's.
does it widen? The curb cut I'm looking at I'm looking at the existing curb cut and the new curb cut.
Yeah,
So
we
that's
did.
why. But it'll be
Right.
straight.
It will be straight.
Okay,
correct.
it's not going to do
Yeah.
some weird little bump out.
Not at
Okay.
all. No,
Okay.
it emulates basically what's there. We just needed it a little wider for the going to 2 single doors instead of a single double door, which was on the carport.
Okay, and then it says we're missing some information related to siding, light fixtures, gutters, downspouts, and mechanical equipment if you're proposing any exterior mechanical equipment.
Right, we can work with staff on that. I mean, in the notes and the drawings state exactly what it will be. It's all wood siding.
So those, good on the driveway, I think those items listed is that additional information that could be approved with condition that information be submitted if applicable.
Okay.
There may be some of those things that you're not doing. but
Certainly,
We can
yeah.
work through that with staff.
Correct.
Okay, let's see, we're at items 3, 4, 5. Sorry, I just want to get my ducks in a row here. We're at 2, 3, 4, 5, is that it? There's no,
So moved. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Poor. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay,
Thank you, Commissioners.
that motion was approved by a vote of 5 to 1. Thank you.
Oh. No.
That motion was passed by a vote of 5 to 2. Okay, move on to item number 2, HPCA 23-00106 at 2412 North Robinson Avenue.
This is in Jefferson Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Jocelyn West, Danks Wellness Emporium, for Shanaz Khalil, Danks Wellness Emporium, for certificate of appropriateness to one add roof-mounted sign elective. The commission has seen this previously. We've been working with this applicant, well, they've seen a previous application for this same or similar sign over the last year. This is a sign that was already installed, and so they're applying retroactively for approval to install the sign. The applicant has indicated that it is a metal sign that has been painted, which the guidelines do allow. Staff's remaining concerns are that the guidelines do not support a roof-mounted sign where it did not exist historically. We know there is a roof-mounted sign on an adjacent property, but that has been documented as having been there since the 1960s. That's a historic property in and of itself, so didn't feel that that was a unique circumstance to justify a roof-mounted sign on a neighboring structure. And then in addition to that, the documentation of how the sign would be installed on the roof didn't appear to accurately illustrate the varying slopes and pitches of the roof. So if approved, we would want to get that pinned down for an accurate certificate of appropriateness.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Hello, please state your name and
Hello.
address for the record.
Awesome. My name is Jocelyn West. I'm here on behalf of Danks Wellness Emporium of 2412 North Robinson in Jefferson Park District. It's an honor to be before this honorable committee once again. Last time I stood before you was June 7th, 2023, and we engaged in a fruitful discussion regarding our storefront sign. During that meeting, we collectively examined the previous sign and, as we agreed, identified the main issue, which was the material used. Our previous sign was a vinyl sign, which unfortunately did not align with the guidelines set forth. Apologies. In the midst of our deliberations, Vice Chairman Sarah Gordon presented us with a constructive option. She suggested that if we were to return with a sign that adhered to the appropriate materials, she would consider an approval for our roof-mounted sign. This suggestion, as she amply put, could serve as a happy medium that would accommodate both our needs and the guidelines that we all respect. We agreed to this proposal wholeheartedly. One of the other issues was the location of our storefront sign, and this committee agreed that an alternative position was simply not a practical or viable option or solution. Acknowledging the unique layout of our building left us no other suitable options for the placement of our sign. In particular, Vice Chairman verbally expressed her endorsement of this approach and her satisfaction with allowing a future metal sign to remain in its current position. She gave us this endorsement under the condition that we strictly adhere to an appropriate material. In a commendable display of fairness and consideration, the entire commission concurred with this approach and reached a collective decision to dismiss our previous application. This decision was made with the understanding and instruction that we would be able to return when we are ready with an appropriate material. This collaborative and accommodated stance reflects this committee's commitment to both upholding this historical preservation guidelines and addressing the unique circumstances that we face. We greatly appreciate the committee's understanding. Today I stand before you to fulfill our end of the agreement with a proposal. We have taken the necessary steps to meet the committee's requested requirements. We have contacted Mr. Easton Isus of Custom Business Designs here in Oklahoma City off Memorial to create our sign using the specified materials that align with the committee's guidelines. Mr. Isus will craft a solid aluminum sign attached to the existing iron bars. Mr. Isu will strip away the previous sign that is up there that you see that is vinyl. He will strip that from its entirety and remove it and construct a new solid aluminum sign from scratch. We chose the metal aluminum for its high quality and aesthetic look that will match the surrounding establishments over a wood option. He has been given the information of this committee's strict instructions and agreements and has agreed and will prepare our sign accordingly. I'm pleased to present to you today the proposal that Mr. Easthus has meticulously crafted for us, as it adheres to the agreements that was made with this committee and fulfills our commitment to meet the guidelines. In light of these developments, I humbly request the certificate of appropriateness under unique circumstances for our roof-mounted sign. We have diligently worked to fulfill our part, and we are eager to continue contributing positively to the community while respecting the historical preservation of the Jefferson District. We are firmly committed to upholding the regulations and guidelines set forth by the Historical Preservation Committee, and we greatly appreciate and extend our sincere gratitude for the opportunity that you have afforded us, allowing us to explore and implement other options. Thank you so much for your time.
Perfect, thank you, very eloquent. So the struggle that I'm having is the location as to where it's mounted, because I wasn't here last time this was discussed, but it looks like there would be alternatives. I would imagine there are some alternatives than having it mounted specifically to the roof. Have you guys looked at that and considered that?
We have. It's just where we have it is where the committee kind of all looked at and agreed that that was the viable option for it. I'm happy to look at other options, but this was what we had discussed previously.
Okay.
Well, just to be very clear, though, we can't, I or the whole committee, we can't make an agreement with you without it being, you know, a formal CA. Like, it's got to actually be, an agreement would imply that it was voted on and granted. So while I remain completely unoffended by a roof-mounted sign right here, and more offended by the flags next door,
I believe
which I
that
was
was your
offended by
exact
December
stance
too.
last time.
You know, we have new commission members, and I certainly couldn't make that agreement on my own. And the guidelines do strictly prohibit exactly what's there. My personal opinion is that it's a commercial use, which makes it more appropriate in my book.
That's pretty fair. What about the size of the sign in particular too? Because there is mention in the staff report that the sign of the size is not in compliance with the guidelines. They should be small in size, and that one does not appear to be that.
Yes.
Thoughts, concerns there?
What is the definition of small in size?
It's not 5'6".
You know, the
Or
guideline,
below.
we don't see a lot of signs. The guidelines for signs are about a page long. There's not a lot to go on, and they seem to be largely talking toward, you know, an apartment building, that sort of thing, not so much a commercial property. They are well within the sign allowance for their base zone. If there wasn't an HL overlay, you would just go with Chapter 3 of the Municipal Code, and there's like a mathematical calculation on how big their sign can be, and they have met that. So I think it just is all about the scale and proportion of the sign to the building, whether it's obscuring architectural features, detracting from the character of the building in the district, that sort of thing. I will note, as far on the topic of placement of the sign, I think as much as we don't generally support a roof-mounted sign where it didn't historically exist, there are not a whole lot of other options for signage on this building that would be visible to passersby because of how low that canopy is that hangs down and projects out over the sidewalk. It's kind of an unusually low and dark kind of pedestrian passage there across the front of the building. So, you know, a sign in the window would be approvable, but that may not be terribly visible to the to customers.
Okay.
I want to thank you for going through, because immediately when I looked at this, I was like, wait a second. I remember talking extensively about the placement, and while we didn't say we would approve it,
Yeah.
there seemed to be a consensus that the location was fine. So I totally agree. You have come back with what was asked.
Yes, sir. This is just a consideration and a request for an approval of this proposal that we are having. We are totally fine with making an all-metal sign that fits the exact guidelines that what you guys are wanting. We're totally compliant with that.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Any members of the public wish to speak on this particular project? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve. I don't think there's any.
I'll second.
Do we need, are there any conditions or anything that need to be met? Some findings? Any unique circumstances of sorts?
Yes, make a motion to approve subject to the findings of specific findings of staff.
Usually,
I think we're probably going to need unique circumstances that,
Okay.
one, there's not really a viable location for this particular sign other than where it currently sits. Any other unique and that the sign be changed to a metal
I
facade?
think that is part of their proposal, so you don't need to address that.
Okay.
It might be worth noting that there are other roof-mounted signs in the immediate area.
If I remember, the roof-mounted sign for Blue Note is not within the district, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there.
But it's part of the character of that
The-
street. I
the-
mean,
that-
that district line is kind of imaginary.
So, I'll amend my motion to include that it's with specific findings and that there are something conditions. Unique circumstances, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Milner, did you? Okay. Moved by Commissioner Wood, second by Commissioner Milner. Please vote in PrimeGov.
I vote yay. My computer's locked up.
Oh, no.
I'm getting a patch, apparently.
Okay. Well, that passed by a vote of 7 to, well, unanimously.
Y'all are awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, move on to item number 3, HPCA 2300109 at 716 Northwest 42nd Street.
This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Ryan Adams for a certificate of appropriateness to, 1, remove curb on east side of driveway by cutting to the level of the driveway elective. This is an unusual case to be before you, just in that the scope of the work is fairly minimal. But when staff evaluated the application, we do have guidelines about preserving historic features, including paving features where visible from the public right-of-way. We noted that these curbs along both sides of the driveway were a fairly consistent feature throughout this area of Crown Heights, and presumably is original to the construction of the home and the installation of the driveway. Removing it was something that we felt like couldn't be just a staff approval, it needed to come before the commission. There's always the potential when you remove features like that for it to have an impact on drainage, on topography, et cetera. This is a fairly low curb, so it may have pretty minimal impact there. But that's what is before you.
Okay, thank you. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Ryan Adams, 716 Northwest 42nd Street.
Excellent. Are you the homeowner?
Yes, homeowner.
What causes you to want to take those out, just out of curiosity? I think I know the answer, but I'm curious.
We moved in about a month and a half ago and quickly learned that although they are low curbs, they were just high enough or just straight enough on the side to severely scratch wheels. And if you look throughout that slide, there are several chips and cracks that are like starting to cut into tires, things like that, that is eventually going to be a pretty good safety issue.
Sure.
We did find a company that can come in with a horizontal saw, and they say they can cut off flush with the driveway, the whole length up there. I would argue that it's not a typical retaining wall, in that if you look at some of the other pictures facing from the south there, like halfway up the driveway, the grass is for sure below that retaining wall, if not flush with the drive itself. So I don't think, in our opinion, that removing that curb, like that picture there, removing that curb would cause the ground to erode any further, especially since it's at the lower part of the driveway, kind of below that rolling terrace area. Further, we would say that there's several houses in the neighborhood that have these curbs. There are probably just as many that don't. So I don't think, in our opinion, that it's diminishing the feature to the historic architecture. And the other piece of that is reducing the height would incredibly increase the livability and the access to actually get in to use our garage. So that's our.
How tall is it? I mean, a couple inches, is that right?
It's 4 inches tall.
Okay, a little taller than I thought. I'm assuming those part of where you've left your wheels before on some of these pictures. But
Yes.
I looked at this, I don't see anything that's major concerning to me. I'd be pretty comfortable with it. I do want to recognize that they are prominent in the neighborhood and that
Yeah, but
they're-
I don't view this as architectural. I
don't
view
either.
this as utilitarian. I don't think it's,
it's not retaining
I don't
anything.
want to prevent somebody from using their driveway and using their home. I would be totally comfortable with an approval.
That's where I'm at.
Well, then I'll motion
Well,
to
hold on, we gotta
approve.
ask if any citizens,
And-
any citizens that wish to be heard on this driveway
Sorry,
project?
I'm watching that clock tick by on
Negative.
how much time we
Okay,
have
go
left.
ahead. Did anybody
Okay.
else want to say? Nobody else said anything. Are we all good, commissioners?
Having comments.
Okay.
We
Yeah,
didn't.
we had. Nobody stood up? I did ask.
I didn't hear that.
It's
One
because I was
comment-
talking over him, trying to approve it.
Yeah.
One comment from staff, and this may be something that you've talked through with Angela, she's not here today, and she and I didn't discuss it, that we would want documented to include in the CA. Once they cut it off, what's the final product? Are they going to come back and coat over that with concrete so it looks finished, or is it going to leave just a rough edge on top?
My understanding is the saw itself will cut it off smooth, similar to the finish of the driveway. If not, they have a grinder that they can come out and potentially make it, smoother than it's after the saw. It's kind of just as good as we can get it to match the existing driveway.
Okay, so that might be something that you want to include a condition in the approval, just to kind of follow up
But he brings back
on that.
documentation
that we-
after the.
Yeah, just that we make sure the finished product is
Okay.
desirable.
Then I would motion to approve HPCA 23-00109, item 1, with the agreed upon condition that upon completion of the project, you bring documentation to staff.
Excellent. Do we have a second? Second. Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by, was that Commissioner Gaines down there? Second by Commissioner Gaines. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item is passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, HPCA 23-00111 at 2912 North Harvey Parkway.
This is in Jefferson Park, Ward 2, consideration of possible action on application by Sandy Rayleigh for certificate of appropriateness to 1, install 2 sidewalks, 1 to either side of the driveway and apply gray topical treatment to the sidewalks, driveway apron and curb required, 2, apply gray sealant to central front walkway and steps required, 3, replace heat and air unit required, and 4, install lattice screen on the portico share required. My understanding is that item 4 has been withdrawn. The lattice that's already been installed will simply be removed and it'll be returned to the original condition, and that there was not in fact a gray sealant applied to the front walkway and steps. I am hoping our applicant is present and can clarify that. This was, again, some discussion that was had by phone with Angela, and she's out today, and I'm not 100% certain that I'm remembering those details accurately. But I do know installing the lattice was to be withdrawn.
Okay. Is the applicant present? Negative. Do we have any public comments on this particular project? Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion to continue this one?
Yeah, I don't, there's too much missing information to
Yes.
even have a discussion, in my opinion, if everybody's comfortable with that. So we don't need to deny item 4 because she's withdrawn it?
Correct.
We don't need to
take any action on that.
Okay.
Would-
Right
would we
now.
continue to next month
I
or
think
not?
with the applicant not being present, we could continue all items to November 1st and hopefully give her time to clarify some of that information and to attend the meeting.
Okay. I would motion to continue items 1 through 3 of HPCA 23-00111 to the November 1st meeting.
We need, go ahead and continue 4, just,
Items 1 through 4 of HPCA 23-00111 to November 1st.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Milner. Please vote in PrimeGov. That was passed unanimously. It will be continued to the November 1st meeting. Moving on to item number 5, HPCA 23-00114 at 1530 Northwest 38th Street.
this is in Putnam Heights, Ward 2, consideration of possible action on application by Paxton Gray for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish garage elective, and 2, replace driveway and garage floor elective. Staff has recommended approval of the demolition of the garage. I believe we did recommend approval with some conditions of the driveway and garage floor as well. What I did want to note is that they have already submitted an application for the new garage to be built, that the garage floor was to be poured in anticipation of the new garage. Staff would really feel more comfortable, since that'll be heard next month, if we went ahead and continued that item 2 and approved the driveway and the garage floor and the new garage all in one approval. Just that way, if there are any changes requested to the footprint of the garage, that would be reflected on that CA. You wouldn't have 2 conflicting sets of documents. It would just be cleaner on staff's end if all of that could be in one piece. Staff was also concerned about approving the pouring of a garage floor without approving a garage, that you all don't know what that garage is going to look like, so.
Okay. Can you state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, Kylie Gray, 1530 Northwest 38th Street.
Perfect, thank you. What are your thoughts on potentially continuing the garage floor discussion until which time we have the garage floor with the garage plans together? Would you be comfortable with that? I think this commission would be very comfortable with that, I will tell you that.
That's fine. We were just told that prices were already increasing, so we were hoping we could go ahead and get the demo done and the concrete report. We are planning on rebuilding as is, with just a few slight changes. The garage, when it has to be taken down, we have an attached shed that provides almost 500 square foot of storage, 462, and that has to come down as well. So in total, currently, we have 1,062 square feet with the garage and the shed. If we rebuild back, we were going to expand it back 3 feet away from the street where it wouldn't be visible, for a total of 726 square feet. So a 336 square foot loss still, but just to expand back 3 more feet towards the back of the garage.
I think we would need all of those plans in front of us to be able to make any decisions and
Right.
really bless it.
Right.
But I mean, in looking at the picture, looks like the garage should certainly be demolished from my perspective. I don't know if anybody else has a differing opinion. Any thoughts, concerns there? No? Good? So I think we could probably approve the demolition of the garage today. We'd want to continue the second piece, and I understand the pricing comment, and I'm sorry for that, but it just wouldn't make sense for us to approve that without being able to see the total package. Any members of the public wish to speak on this particular project? Do we have any other questions, thoughts, concerns for the applicant?
What date for extension on this? When,
I think it's
For
already
other
been
items.
applied for, so I think November 1st.
First.
December 1st.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
So, I'm sorry, was it
So
approving the
we're-
demo, but
what
wait
it
on the
appears where we're
report?
going is approval of the demo and then continue the garage floor pour until the November 1st. We can hear both your garage build and the pour at the same time.
Okay, that works.
I'll make a motion to approve item 1 on HPCA 2300114.
I'll
Second.
second.
Moved by Commissioner Poor, second by Commissioner Milner. Please vote in PrimeGov.
Is that with the findings in the staff report?
Yes.
Okay, that motion was approved by a vote, unanimously. Move on to item number 6, HPCA
Do
2300.
we need a continuance?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I can,
That's right.
I'm happy to do that.
Yes.
I move to continue HPCA-23-00114, item 2.
Second that.
Moved by Commissioner Milner, seconded by Commissioner Poor. Okay, the continuance is also passed unanimously. Now we'll move on to item number 6, HPCA 23000115 at 2522 North Chartel Avenue.
So this applicant reached out to let us know that they had gotten caught in another meeting and were going to be running late, and could we move them to the end of the docket? So,
Do we need a
So-
motion to do that?
did they need? No, so
Okay.
Okay,
we'll come back to that one.
we'll skip number 6 for now. We'll go back to HPCA 23000116 at 625 Northwest 37th Street. Is the applicant present?
This is Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration of possible action on application by Jeff Blake, Emerson Blake Design Build, for Lindsay Miller for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish brick patio elective, 2, construct new addition elective, and 3, construct new sidewalk and back patio elective. You have at your seats an image that the applicant provided of another structure in the neighborhood with a standing seam metal roof with a front porch. Staff did note that we could not find a CA for that and that it is visible on photographs of the house going back to 1996. So we believe that's an original feature. There's a comment in your staff report about metal roofs, copper roofs not being appropriate. We're not having existed historically. The only other comment I would make about the application that was not in your staff report is that we kind of miscalculated in the writing of the staff report. They're actually 100 square feet over the 750 square foot limit for an addition. That limit is 750 total square feet, not footprint, or 50% of the house footprint, whichever of the two is larger. So beyond that, staff had no real concerns with design, materials, et cetera, but did want the commission to address the size of the addition as proposed.
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Jeff Blake, Gumerson Lake Design Build, 1020 Northwest 81st Street.
Awesome. So in looking at the application, I guess this is more so for the commission members up here. I think it's 50 downstairs and 50 over downstairs and 50 over upstairs as well. I didn't have any major concerns with the size. The only thing that I didn't love was the metal roof, just because I don't think it necessarily fits in this particular, well, I don't think the guidelines support it in this particular application, but other than that, I think it's great, and looks like staff's recommended an approval with conditions. So what are your all's thoughts?
I was just paging through here and curious, I'm not seeing a great visual on the metal roof, but I'm probably just missing it.
There might be a 3/4 view that shows it a little bit, like the back, it's just the back porch, the 2-column back porch. It's very small.
Page 17 of 29 shows a roof plan of it.
Let's see. Thank you.
I will also say that I'm not like totally opposed to it either, but it is a concern.
We saw that roof on 38th Street, and Katie's right, a CA wasn't applied for, someone just did it. But it's in the neighborhood, so that was kind of our thinking behind it. But if that's a no-go, obviously, we could comp roof it.
So not a major sticking point that would hold the project up.
If that's going to hang us up, we'll fall back to a comp roof.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that could be a compromise between allowing the slightly larger square footage if we can just go to a material that actually is supported.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the square footage. I mean, that's so
It's so
minimal,
small.
in my opinion. It doesn't affect the overall project at all, in my opinion.
I agree.
Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay, commissioners, do we have a potential motion here?
I will motion to, well, do we want to talk, does anybody have questions about the patio or anything that we didn't talk about? I don't, but I was already cutting Taylor off a minute ago, so I thought I would ask. I would motion to approve items 1 through 3 of HPCA 23-00116 with the agreed upon condition that the metal seam roof is replaced with a standard composition roof and documentation provided to staff. And I'll note the specific findings referenced in the staff report.
There were a couple of
and there are
conditions in the
conditions.
staff report too, and that's just about some materials that we needed to make sure we have accurate documentation.
Is the applicant comfortable with reviewing the 2 conditions in the staff report and providing the additional documentation?
Yes.
Okay, so with the conditions and specific findings and the agreed upon condition of supporting the new documentation.
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Whitley. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that motion was approved, passed unanimously. Thank you. So moving on to item number 8, HPCA 23-00117 at 700 Northwest 40th Street.
This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration of possible action on application by Holly Hunt, HJH Design for Corinne Greenfield, for certificate of appropriateness to 1 Construct Addition. And I'm getting all my additions confused, so I don't remember what we recommend.
Recommend approval.
I think this is an
I didn't
addition of, are you sure, Holly, really?
Noah is Holly's project.
Approval with just some conditions regarding making sure we got accurate documentation on various building materials that were not fully illustrated in the application.
Okay.
I was just limited to windows,
Again.
so.
Yeah, we're happy to provide additional window information and
Who
so
are you
forth.
again?
Oh, Holly Hunt. This one is a side job of mine. HJH Design is my company that I work for my own little projects. Anyway, this is just a small master bathroom addition over an existing single-story bump out in the rear, we assume was an addition at some point in its history. So very modest little, just a master bathroom. The bedroom, the whole house has 1 bathroom, so we're just trying to solve that issue here with this project. So we're thrilled with the approval recommendation, and we hope you feel the same.
Is the only concern the documentation of the windows?
Yes, and I don't recall, I think we had kind of a drawing of the window, but not the actual manufacturer's specification. So we'd like to get that so that we can confirm in the CA that the windows meet applicable guidelines for true divided light, simulated divided light, et cetera.
Yeah, we're pretty familiar with what that requires, and I always provide a drawing of windows that we give to the window manufacturer so that they can provide their quote, so they'll match those same details that I discussed, and which are all supported by the guidelines. So we'll be sure that everything meets, and we'll get that to staff.
Okay. Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns from commissioners, or perhaps a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, there is a citizen that wish. Okay. Please state your name and address for the record at the podium.
My name is Ben Cowley. I am at 704 Northwest 40th Street. And I will admit that I'm really here more for advice of the committee. We live in the house adjacent, and if you look at the driveway photo, we share a driveway. And it may or may not be an issue, but during construction, it depends upon how they plan on executing this. For example, if they pull a dumpster into their part of the driveway, and on the opposite side of the street, if they park behind our driveway, it will be nearly impossible for us to get in and out of the driveway.
Sure.
In addition, since we share the driveway, if there's damage to our driveway, presumably they'll be responsible for that, but I don't particularly want to have to go through a process of trying to recoup that. The final thing, and I confess I don't know, and maybe I should ask the young woman who presented, I don't know which contractors they plan on engaging to do this. My wife has been led to believe that the contractors that will be engaged are currently working on the house across the street. I don't know if that's true, but the contractors across the street have multiple sites of construction within Crown Heights. They have 1 central porta potty across the street from our house. It's a community porta potty used by anybody and everybody, including the security service, and I think homeless people. And my understanding is it's actually not appropriate because it's about a foot from the curb. Finally, and once again, I don't know if these are the contractors that will be engaged, but though I'm certainly sensitive to the issue of global warming, and my wife is a little tired of picking up the cigarette butts out of her yard where the construction workers come across the street to sit in the shade of our tree. And so our concern isn't necessarily with the project. I don't even know what the nature of the project is. We just got a notice that this meeting was going to occur. And so I guess I would ask the advice of the committee, how do we address the concerns that I just expressed?
One, it's a bunch of really great questions. I don't know that I necessarily have the answer for, but I will tell you, you're on record today, just in historic preservation. I guess my guidance and suggestion will be to talk with Holly and to talk with the HOA group, but I don't believe that this is part of our purview either.
Yeah, as far as the, how they're going to carry out the construction and where dumpsters will be and trucks and workers and that sort of thing, I think Holly would be more than happy to talk with you about how that will all be coordinated so that you're not inconvenienced. I have heard word of the infamous porta potty. That is not an HP thing. They don't need a CA for the porta potty, but it very likely is a code enforcement thing. I think it may have already been reported to Action Center, but I would recommend you and any other neighbors that are concerned continuing to report to Action Center.
I'm sorry, to whom should that be
To
reported?
the city's Action Center. It's where you can file code enforcement complaints. And you can, if you will follow up with HP staff after the meeting, I'll get you more information about how to do that. But yeah, like I said, it's not an HP matter, but there are city regulations and rules for where those types of things can and cannot be installed. So.
Thank you. Once again, our concern isn't
Sure.
with the project per
Yeah.
se, it's execution of the project.
Makes perfect sense. Sounds like you got a bead right now. It's great. Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on this project?
I agree with him on the porta potty.
Okay, well, thank you, Commissioner.
Let's see. Do we?
You can't walk down the street in front of their house without smelling it. It's very bad.
Sounds like a crappy situation. Let's see. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion for HPCA 2300117 with the specific conditions and findings in the staff report.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Whitley. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that was approved with conditions by a vote, well, but unanimously yet again. Moving on, item number 9, HPCA 2300118 at 827 Northwest 17th Street.
This is in Mester Park, Ward 6, consideration of possible action on application by Taylor Volk of Clovor LLC for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, reconstruct accessory structure at 2 stories with additional square footage required, 2, construct attached 2-story garage elective, 3, pour driveway elective, 3, replace fence elective, and we have a numbering error there, so don't worry about that. We'll clean that up in the minutes and everything. We have 2 number 3s. And 4, construct addition to the front of the dwelling elective. So staff has recommended a continuance on each of these items. I would say to start with, staff cannot envision a path toward approval of an addition on the front of a house. That is not something that HP guidelines support under any circumstances. No amount of documentation, design work, et cetera, in staff's opinion, is going to get us to a place where we would support an addition to the front of the house. This house has been altered aggressively over the years, but that doesn't mean we just open the door to ongoing, additional alterations, particularly on the primary facade. Similarly, staff has a hard time envisioning getting to a point where we would support building another 2-story accessory structure on this site in addition to the one that already exists. Just from a lot coverage perspective, massing perspective, accessory buildings that already are present. So those 2 are challenging. There is an existing, presumably historic accessory structure. Work has already been undertaken on that building without the appropriate CAs and building permits. We would theoretically support renovating, rehabilitating an existing accessory building. That's an appropriate thing to do. At this time, we recommended continuance because we didn't feel we had accurate documentation of the existing structure prior to work being undertaken and all the changes that are proposed to it at this time. As far as our 2 item 3s, pour the driveway and replace the fence, both of those are things that are potentially approvable, but I think would be contingent upon approval of one or both of the accessory structures so that their configuration is in line with whatever building work gets approved.
Okay, thank you. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
I'm Taylor Volk, 827 Northwest 17th Street.
Okay, perfect. So it sounds like 2 and 4, and I tend to agree with staff and their assessment of the denials on both of those, but certainly want to hear kind of your perspective on this and where you're at with it. I also want to note, looks like the neighborhood's got a lot of issues with this particular project on a number of different fronts too, and so I think this one might be a little tougher. So give us your take on staff's comments and kind of where you're at with the project and what you're wanting to do, and then also the comment on what would need to happen with the driveway and the fence with the idea that 2 and 4 may not be approved.
Yes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to discuss the idea of the front of the house. I understand adding on to the front of the house may not be the best step forward. However, the flat roof line is going to be a major concern for health reasons and also protecting the property. Maybe a best step forward would be advice on how to best protect the roof line. If I'm not able to put a roof over where the roof line is, with the plans in point, if there would be something to advise on where the current roof is. The way that it's wrapped around the porch is not a good plan, and it's going to be a problem, and I have to address that. If I can get some advice on that, I can come up with better plans if my plans are not forthcoming. If at all possible, can I extend the roof without enclosing the structure? It'd be a better look and view, and I can make adjustments to my plans if that would be acceptable.
I would imagine any alterations to the front-facing exterior of the property is going to be really challenging to push through. And quite frankly, I don't know that the commission is set up to give advice on what to do and how to design the roof slope and structure and all of that. The only advice I could give you is to find somebody that, a smart architect or a smart designer that could help you out with that situation too. So I don't know that there's much that I could offer in terms of advice there. But comment on some of the other items too, in terms of the driveway and the fence and how those interact with the 2 items that could potentially be denied. Then I know other commissioners have comments as well. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, kind of.
Go for it.
Just because we've seen this before, and there was a large concern from the neighborhood and from this commission over the use of the property as a home share, when no one from the neighborhood seems to believe that it is owner occupied. So first of all, I'd kind of like to ask if it's still being used as a home share and if you do in fact occupy the property.
I do occupy the property as my primary residence. The home share application was no longer being, the home share application is no longer being, reviewed. I'm not proposing to do that at this time or going forward.
But is it being used as a home share?
No, it's not.
So why is there such discrepancy from the people who live next door as to whether you live there and whether it is being used as a home share?
I do not know the answer to that question. I don't think that anyone's come up to ask me any questions or came up to come talk to me and meet me in person if they wanted to have a discussion about anything. I'm more than happy to. I've been living there since the beginning of the year. I know that the home share application was a big deal in the neighborhood. So at this time, I'm not pursuing that, and I enjoy the property for my primary residence.
Unfortunately, no. Sorry, excuse me. Unfortunately, I don't know that we can get into too much of the home sharing piece because it's not.
Well,
Technically,
when you applied for it, what you stated, I believe on the record, was that the secondary accessory dwelling would be in order to gain more space with which to rent out different rooms within the property. And so I think it's pretty relevant to this application that if you're still trying to get another accessory dwelling unit passed, then I have no reason to believe it's not for a home share.
But it's not, yours is not the use that he's going to make of it, but whether or not the design of it is appropriate for HP purposes.
I wanted to start with the first point was that the roof line, And then I'd like to talk about the garage if I had a moment. In that question, am I allowed to redo the flat roof that is currently there it to be more in line with, I forgot what the term is, but it's a flat roof that is current modern construction, and am I allowed to do that in protecting the property?
Absolutely. Repairs to that flat roof, replacement of the roof, anything that is going to retain the design of it and the appearance of it, but make it watertight and, keep it from deteriorating further, that would be something we could approve and would likely be approvable by staff if we have accurate documentation of the work that's performed.
And the additional point would be safety. Would I be allowed to put that metal railing around the perimeter that's in my design feature? It's a continue of the
Do we have
roof.
another photo that better illustrates the, there? So that's a window, correct? That opens above that flat roof? All the way to the far left, that's a window that opens out?
That is a window.
And then, other than crawling through that window, how would you get onto that roof?
That point where the brick is maybe about 1.5 feet, 2 feet, if I were to be allowed to put a rail there, right
So
there.
I believe that rail was actually denied. The rail that's there now was denied by the commission and has never been removed. But certainly if there is legal code compliant access to that roof, then we could certainly consider any additional railings that are needed to make that space safe. Sometimes we have flat roofs that people have created an access point to that really shouldn't be there and that shouldn't be accessible in the first place. So we would need to look at that.
What is the proposed, if, your proposal as it stands, what is the lot coverage?
Could you repeat that question, please?
As your proposal stands, as you have applied, what is your lot coverage on the site?
As far as the building coverage?
Everything that is, all of your concrete and all of your structures.
Would that be from a percentage standpoint? I'm not familiar
Yes,
with
a
that.
percentage standpoint, yes.
I am not sure. In my application, it's a very similar footprint to what is historically had been there. Previously, there was two different structures. One was the structure that is currently there, and then there was a garage that is also on site. So there were two accessory structures. I wanted to redo the original structure of the accessory building, and then on the garage option, I wanted to be able to have a garage just like many other homes in the neighborhood have, to be able to park my vehicles. Additionally, my consideration is to try to eliminate on-street parking. It's also a concern for the neighborhood is parking on the street. I don't have a formidable place to park. The garage would solve that issue additionally, and then making the concrete that is currently there better by removing that retaining wall and making it a flat surface so I can access the property from the alley, just like many homeowners behind me are able to do and next door are able to do. That is my proposed plan as to why having a garage is going to be important. Also, property value. Property value for this particular large home doesn't have a garage. I think that not having a garage is a big deal to many, and it's true to myself. Whereas I don't have anywhere to park my vehicle inside a garage. That's where I would like to have a best foot forward. I want to make this a home for a long time for myself, but it also has appropriateness to be able to have a garage.
Is that structure behind that is in this picture right now, is that not capable of being a garage, or was that not designed initially to be a garage? What was that designed for?
It was not originally a garage. It doesn't have any design features to be able to be a garage. It has the same design features historically, where it was considered a storage building, from what I can tell from many details I could find. Storage of wood is what it says on is what it says on the tax assessor. And to address the comment, the footprint for the property, for this particular building, it does meet the exact same footprint that it was there originally, historically. The only difference is the flat roof on the second floor. To be able to square the corner and have a proper roof on it, that's the only difference. If you were to look at my design from when I purchased the property, it had the site plan. It demonstrates the exact same square footage and same dimensions as the property, as the project that I have in front of you. Between having a garage is an option, just like it historically had a garage. I also designed just being able to complete this building. As it stands, I really want to get a roof on it so I can properly protect it from the elements, especially as winter's coming. And if at all possible, I can meet any of your exceptions or any adjustments or changes you have to make for this building. My goal today is ultimately getting this building to have a roof on it more than anything else. But if we can have a more discussions along the lines of having the garage, we can continue that if needed. These historical pictures that I submitted that also I would like to share with the committee, then that in particular would help show that the footprint, there used to actually be a lot larger footprint. There was a driveway that went into the backyard. That's been removed, and there used to be this garage here, and if you look at the historical pictures, the footprint has been significantly reduced to where it was before.
So I don't think anybody on this commission would necessarily deny somebody the option or ability to have a garage on their property if there's room for it. I think the issue is that this current structure was begun without a CA or without a building permit, and so now we're having to weigh the choice between, you know, whether you're allowed 2 secondary structures on the property. And just looking at this application, Katie, I'm trying to figure out, is this actually even 2 structures? Like, are we reviewing this as 2 structures? Because to me, it looks like 1 structure, and then we're looking at, you know, what's the square footage on that structure, and would it ever be something we would approve?
So just first, because I shared my screen. So this is the Sanborn map from 1950 of the house, which matches the existing structure. And you can see at the rear, there is a 2-story auto house, which is what Sanborn maps referred to as garages, with a 1-story little kind of lean-to off to the side. This would be consistent with the condition of the structure that was there prior to any work being undertaken. At various points in time, other structures have been present on the site. You can see here there was another accessory building that came all the way out to the corner that was approved to be demolished several years ago. There you can see the existing building prior to all the construction work that has been, or kind of early on, where you can still see that historic 2-story garage at the corner. I know it no longer functioned as a garage, but that appears to be what it was originally built as. And here are some aerial photos show, you know, that concrete site coming off the corner where there was previously a structure. I believe there was a carport in the middle of the backyard. And I'm sorry, I have completely forgotten what your actual question was, Sarah. I just wanted to scroll
just
through
whether
that.
we would ever, well, it was kind of a 2-part question, so that was confusing anyway. But when I'm looking at his proposal, I mean, this looks like 1 structure to me. I understand it's 2 items, but it's connected and it's really 1 structure. So I'm struggling to understand whether A, we would ever approve 2 large secondary structures in 1 yard, and if it's being treated as 1 structure, so that, you know, maybe you could approve 1 structure, it's got to be way over any allowed footprint.
Yes, so I can recall one example of a property that was on quite a large site that had a very small carriage house, the historic carriage house, that because of mature trees that had grown up between the house and the curb, they really couldn't get a vehicle down to the carriage house anymore. They wanted to keep it and continue to use it for storage, and I think there was kind of old quarters in it. that they were using for a guest space, and they were approved to build a second garage at kind of the opposite corner of their yard, accessed off the side street. I believe they were still well below lot coverage. The new garage was 1 story, was very modest. It met the 450 square foot guidelines. And because of the size of the site, it didn't feel overwhelming to the property. I have a hard time envisioning on a site already as densely developed as this, that we could find a justification for another accessory building. We do have it written as 2 different ones. It does look, the way it's drawn, like they would be attached to each other. I don't know if there would be, you know, components of how it's actually built that would lead plan review to consider it to be 2 buildings instead of 1 building, but they are definitely abutting, if not connected,
I mean,
from what I can tell.
The only scenario I can see in which I would personally approve really any of this is if the existing non-permitted construction became the garage and was applied for as a garage with no other structures as a part of it or separate from it. And even then, I don't feel super comfortable with it, but I do understand what you're saying about, you know, whether that garage would be appropriate right there. And that's kind of the only way I could see moving forward with any secondary structure right now.
I tend to agree with you. I feel like the lot really doesn't support that many structures on it. And when I think you have something that can serve as a garage, it's not built out for a garage currently, but that's traditionally, I think, where you would place it. It feels like that's what it should be returned to, especially since it's really unpermitted construction anyways. I guess I'm struggling with this one, but are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this particular project? Let's hear from you, and then we'll see what other comments and concerns we have from commissioners.
Thank you for your time. To sign this. Okay, my name is Andy Sullivan. Sue and I moved into our house at 915 Northwest 17th in 1976. When I interviewed for a job here, I was told not to think about living there because it was a bad neighborhood. This was before there were neighborhood associations or historic preservation. There's several of us that have been concerned about this. Unfortunately, our own fault. We didn't learn about this meeting until yesterday at noon, so we have not submitted anything in advance, but I have a letter that we've been able to put together from our neighbors. And so I asked some indulgence. I may run over 3 minutes because I need to reply to some of the comments already made.
Let's hear it.
So I'm here representing the neighbors signed below. We protest the project and application at 827 Northwest 17th Street. 6 of us have homes directly across the street or alley from the address. Mine is located 1 house away, and I pass by daily. We strongly oppose the additional 2 units that were started without a building permit. I'd like to add here that the only reason we found that out was one of our neighbors went to the construction guys because they'd been using generators to charge the car batteries on their cars and asked for a building permit, and they didn't understand her at all. And so she asked them in Spanish, and when she did that, suddenly they packed up their tools and they were gone and have not been seen since. That was added here. So it's an eyesore. You saw pictures of it. The Tavec wrap is coming apart. Piles of lumber and a weathered frame are there. The 2 units that replace what was a garage leaves only a single-car driveway for off-street parking. The homeowner already has several individual rooms for rent as a boarding house, which results in many cars. At this point, I have to stop. For him to say this is not being a home share right now, I don't see how that could be. We sit there and watch cars come and go every weekend, every holiday, such that all parking spaces on Francis and most on 17th are taken over. These people unload baggage, they go in the house, they come and go, kid stuff. The garbage cans overflow. I mean, one person living in that house could not fill the garbage cans that we see that are clearly visible all the time in the street. Diversion there. So the lack of off-street parking creates traffic congestions on our 2 streets. The trash overflows every week and sits in the driveway where it is constantly visible because it sits right there. You can see where it is in the alleyway. If the truck's not there, it's sitting there. We feel that the unfinished structure needs to be completely removed. You know, the statement was this was going to be a garage. You can see where the studs are. That's not intended as a garage. You could not drive a car into that. There's no way you can drive a car into that. So we do not trust the current owner to have professional contractors complete the project to the neighborhood standards, resulting in more unappealing updates to this property that has undergone so many alterations over the years. We are not convinced that the current homeowner is living on the property as required for our home sharing permit. His lack of communication with neighbors and resistance to follow city guidelines are of great concern to us. Since the last meeting, he's not reached out to any of us to address our concerns. At one point, he had a crew running leaf blowers over a small patch of bare yard for several days. You can see the front yard. It was bare at that time, and these leaf blowers would show up in the afternoon and stand there just blowing loud leaf blowers for hours on end. And they would stop when we went out and asked them what they were trying to accomplish, because it was just dirt being blown away. And they said, well, that was what they'd been instructed to do, and then they turned them off and left. If this is approved, it will set a new standard for share housing in a preservation neighborhood. We are not opposed to home sharing if it follows the guidelines. There are actually home shares in our block. We hope you'll consider our concerns to deny this application. I will add a few things that came in today. So we don't have legal counsel. We did last time, but we couldn't afford it a second time around. But we've looked at some regulations, and there's one for home share that says it had to be an existing home share before, where is it? Well, it's 2019. I have it here. January 15th of 2019. The regulation regarding home sharing state that a new application for home sharing has to indicate that it was functioning as a home share prior to January 15th, 2019. The other thing is there a signed affidavit? I'm sure this is under oath that he is living in that house and it's his primary residence. We need a list of bedrooms and how many people are there.
Mr. Sullivan, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, we are here today to talk about the design of the particular property, not the use of it.
All right, can I add one thing? There's a regulation that says that this structure is a danger to children, and it either needs to be boarded up or taken down, and that's a regulation that we found. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Yep.
I would like to note that while we're not reviewing that, we did get another letter from a neighbor citing the same, set of circumstances surrounding what's going on over there, as well as some comments from the neighborhood.
So I think we've heard from Mr. Volk about the project quite a bit. I don't know if there are specific other questions or concerns, but are we at a place where we think we could start to craft a motion, either approving or denying portions of this, or what?
I think you have somebody else who wants to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Would you like to speak?
Good afternoon. My name is Pamela Volk, and I am Taylor Volk's mother. I can attest that this is his residence. That is his pickup in that picture. There's not even room for his pickup to be parked there.
Sure.
If you don't mind, that I'd like to address a couple of the things. I'm his mom, and I'm one of the people that pulls up and brings things in and out. And then I don't know if this gentleman's ever seen me before, but he just also mentioned the leaf blowers. Taylor was working towards getting all of the piles of debris that was on the ground level in order to seed, and it was something that needed to be done. They raked, it just didn't get down to there, so they were using the leaf blowers in order to loosen that up. And yes, somebody did come and talk to his workers and asked them to stop. It was in the afternoon, it wasn't in an inappropriate hour. So we've kind of felt that he keeps kind of running into these kinds of issues and trying to make the property better. If you don't mind me going back to the front part for just a moment, because Taylor has a child, and then he also has nieces and nephews that visit during holidays, which are some of those people coming in and out during the holidays. That area where it's kind of like a little bit of a wall, there's a concern with kids climbing over that, and even if they were safe to do so, that it's a very small layer up there. So he's looking at it as a standpoint of how to make it look great for the neighborhood, but then also be safe for anybody that is there. So I just wanted to speak on that. And then this is the first time that I know I've heard about, and I was here for the previous meetings, about that fence that's up above now, that wasn't previously approved. I feel like it's something that continues to come up too, of things that had been previously done to the property, so many different changes, He purchased the property, seeing a vision of these things to make this property a lot like the other homes, which would include having a garage, fixing the structure. The back structure was definitely concerned regarding safety for anybody. Before he even purchased it, which is why that needed to be completed. But now then there's the garage issue too. So I just wanted to speak to that. I can attest to, I'm one of the people that's coming in and out, especially during holidays, but often on a daily basis. I live in the area, so thank you.
Thank you. Perfect.
To the comment about the railing, I think that just came up as we were reviewing this CA when you all were here before. We were focused on the home sharing application and we weren't looking at all the details of previous CAs. As I said, this house has had an enormous amount of work done to it over time, and I certainly don't want to penalize a new owner for the wrongdoings of previous owners. Some things have been improved by previous owners, some things have been kind of left in an unfinished state, so I certainly understand that. My comment was just to say, we don't want to take something that wasn't supposed to be there in the first place and continue to make it worse, but we can look at how to make sure that the property is safe.
Okay, so.
I have some questions.
Yes, sir.
In looking at the garage structure and the other structure, which I agree appear to be one structure, but I guess there are two structures, I think I'm counting 7 doors on all of those structures. Why are there so many doors and doors with porch lights beside them? I think I count 4 doors that actually have a porch light immediately beside it. Why are there so many access doors on these structures?
Is that in reference to the garage
Yes.
building? I believe there's the garage door, and then there's 2 doors on the north side, and then I think there's 1 door on the south, which is connected to the garage door, I believe.
So on I'm looking at attachment 2, page 25, that shows the west elevation, that shows the garage doors, and then immediately beside the garage doors, there is an access door with a porch light, then a stairwell that goes up. See, so we've got 2 doors right there that appear to be, it appears to be similar to an apartments being there, which is concerning. And then if you go to, let me continue to scroll down here, then we have stop and discuss garage. If you go to page 34 of 36, we have a similar look with 2 more doors, porch lights beside each one, stairs that go up, again on the west elevation. So now it looks like we're having 4 separate somethings. I'm just curious, and then where else did I see doors? I counted 7 different doors, some with porch lights, some with not, and it just doesn't make any sense to me why we're having so many doors on a structure for someone that only one person and his children live in, or child.
It feels like it's trying to become a little bit of a boutique hotel or a apartment complex in the middle of the neighborhood right now. Just gut feel from me perspective. So
yeah,
feel free to comment on that.
Well, I'd like to help assess that. For the west elevation, we've got the 2 doors without the garage. If you include the garage, it would have the garage door for the cars to drive through, and then 1 door to exit the garage on my proposed building. If the question is regarding to the main, it has a lot of doors, which is a neat architectural feature. But for my proposed building, there's 1 for the 2nd floor and there's 1 for the 1st floor. And then the garage is separate, where it has a garage door and a garage with it. If that helps answer the question, I hope it does.
And then there's...
I also like to note after to help calm any nerves with the committee. I'd also like to mention I'm going to be hiring licensed professional contractors on this, so this job is going to be top tier, professionally done. My neighborhood is, in my thoughts, that they're going to be proud of what they're going to see. My lawn is currently in line with the high quality lawn landscape of others in the neighborhood. That actually was part of the reason why there was a leaf blower. Is I truly spent a lot of time and a lot of money on that lawn, and it looks really, really nice now. And I'm here to make the neighborhood just as nice as everyone else. This building was falling over when I first when I first had this property. It also was not conformed to any historical preservation requirements. It had vinyl siding. It was falling over. There was many issues that had to be addressed on this building, and I do truly just want to make this property great again. And
where I'm at with it, I'm not opposed to reconstructing the accessory structure that's, two-story structure at the back of the property. I am not in favor of constructing a new two-story garage. I'm not in favor of constructing the addition at the front of the dwelling. I don't know if that means that we wouldn't then do the driveway or the fence. So comment on how driveway and fence relate to construction of the two-story garage. I mean, is the driveway and the fence being built around that two-story garage or going up to that two-story garage?
That's a great question. In my application, I also included that so we can approve the accessory structures single-handedly without any garage option. If you were to go to one of the last few pages of my application, it details what the drive would look like in relation to that structure, and it's to scale, and measurements are included. It's not far off from where it currently is and where it was historically as far as footprint and concrete.
I'm not seeing, do you know what page that's on, the driveway?
Is it 28?
I believe it's page 32 of the attachment 2.
So this is what the driveway would be if the garage is not built. Is that correct?
Page 32, it is included, and it shows the fence line there. We've got a 29-foot front to go in front, which is not far off from where the current concrete line actually is. Moving that fence, I don't believe that fence is moving very much in its current arrangement. The concrete for the front would be 29, and the rear would be
Do you have something else you want to comment on?
If you don't mind, thank you for
Name and address for the record
allowing me
again,
one
please.
more. I would like to just speak on the questions that.
Ma'am, name and address and microphone,
I'm
please.
sorry. I'm speaking regarding 827 Northwest 17th Street and Pamela Volk. I just wanted to speak towards the question regarding some of those fixtures and the doors and that it, mostly for aesthetics, aesthetically pleasing. We looked at a lot of the other structures in the neighborhood and wanted it to look nice and well lit is a safety feature. But then also with bringing things in and out, it's got a fence. So with one door, you're accessing from the backyard and the other door you're accessing from outside it. So you don't necessarily have to go through the fence. It's a lot of steps, and I'm handicapped, so I have a difficult time having to go through all those different places. So we just talked about that as being something that would be helpful.
Fair enough.
safety.
Well, as it is proposed, I would be in favor of denying 1, 3, and 5 with prejudice and continuing item 4. I'm totally uncomfortable with the proposal as it is drawn with the appearance of a duplex. I'm also not seeing that lower door is within the bounds of the fence. It appears to be outside of it, so I don't know that the argument about having, one door so that you can access it a little bit easier is relevant here. Totally support your idea of having a garage on the property, would never deny somebody the ability to have one, but there's really nothing on this proposal that I could get behind other than possibly the fence.
I would love to entertain a motion.
I just have a point of
Yes, ma'am.
clarification on the agenda. So we did have 2 item 3s, so just want to make sure we're referencing the right.
At the top, we've
Numbers.
got 1 through 5. It's just at the bottom. I think that it was misnumbered. Is that correct, Katie?
On the agenda, it says 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. In the staff report, sorry that we didn't catch that, they are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So
Okay.
the driveway is 3, the fence is 4, and the addition to the front of the house is 5, to clarify.
Thank you.
In any sort of motion, would we need to note that difference? Okay. Is anybody else ready for a motion, or is there further discussion?
Let's hear it.
Regarding HPCA 23-00118, I would motion to deny items 1, 2, 3, and 5 noted in this, as noted and numbered in the staff report with prejudice.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Wood. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that denial was passed unanimously for which ones? 1, 2, and 5?
Everything but 4. So for HPCA, 23-00118, I would motion to continue item 4 to the, item 4 is noted in the staff report to the November 1st meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there a different date that you'd prefer?
Well,
To
if I may
clarify, that's the
ask
fence.
If I may ask a question, is the complete design in consideration? Is there any way I could put a roof on it, an exception, or a complete?
Sounds like that was completely denied.
Understood.
Yeah.
So the fence, we can continue to November 1st or to December 6th. And I will say that a fence all by itself could likely be administratively approved if it meets those criteria. So we could do the December 6th meeting and likely work out any kind of fence approval between now and then with the applicant.
November was just fine. I was just
Okay.
November's, please do keep.
Okay, so to the November 1st meeting.
Okay. And did we get, yes, moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Wood. Okay, the motion on the fence was also passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yep. Okay, moving on to item number 10, HPCA 23-00119 at 501 Northwest 15th Street.
This is consideration and possible action on application by Lacey Harville for certificate of appropriateness to, 1, construct new fence with stucco columns elective. And I think we did not note this in your staff report, but this is work that has already been initiated. The commission has to review it as if it had not yet occurred.
Okay.
Staff's primary concerns with the proposed fence are that it appears to be taller than the guidelines would support and to be too far forward per what the guidelines allow for fence placement.
Okay, name and address for the
Hi,
record,
I'm
please.
Nina Harville. My husband's going to be here, but he has been delayed.
Okay.
So I'm the sacrificial lamb here, but I can answer any questions. As far as the height of the fence, it's exactly the same as it was before. And being too far out or too far in, I think that was apparently the same too. We had to, I guess, somebody my husband talked to said that it would probably be, could be, the fence alone could be approved over his desk, but I think the problem was that we put columns. And apparently that was the problem. We had to replace the fence because it was a danger. It's
Sure.
right there on Walker. It was a danger of falling down on somebody. There was construction workers in the back that were working. There was we have dogs that we couldn't let out, so we absolutely had to replace it. And I'm just here for any other questions
Sure.
that I might know.
I think the challenge is the way that the fence was constructed and the design of the fence. I would imagine if it was, no stucco columns, pretty standard type fence, you probably could have gotten that administratively approved in the location with the same height and everything too. But this is it's a far departure from what was there originally. And quite frankly, I don't know that if we would have seen this, that we would have approved it to begin with, which makes it really challenging now.
I mean, looking at the photos, it's pretty clear you needed a new fence, and I'm not the setback and the height doesn't really bother me so much because of the nature of a lot of the fences on the north-south streets through Heritage Hills. But I do think the horizontal fencing planks are pretty out of character with the historic neighborhood, and I don't think that design-wise we would have been comfortable reviewing it even if we'd gotten over the hump of the height and location.
From your perspective, are the columns, or is it the structure of the wood?
I love a masonry fence. Like I think stucco fences and brick fences are very nice. I'm not offended by the columns from a design perspective, but I do think like just the design of the fence, in my opinion, is pretty glaringly out of historical context. There's not, I haven't noticed another horizontal.
We did approve a horizontal in Mesta Park, I know. Katie, was that under a different guideline?
So we don't have any guidelines for fencing, or pretty minimal as far as design. It says what materials are allowed, it says what the height should be, what the setback should be. We have approved numerous horizontal fences, but usually they have been mid-block where it was just spanning the distance from one house to another house, and it's set back, 40% of the length of the house, so they're not as prominent as this one is, being on a corner property like this. We kind of look at fences as, particularly when it's just a wood fence, as fairly transient, that they deteriorate fairly quickly, and people come in and want a new look, and styles change, and the fences get replaced over time. I think, staff's main concern here was kind of the combination of all of it together, the height of it, the placement of it, and then the, kind of design features that were not there previously. I will note that we have in the past approved fences that were forward of, the commission has been able to approve fences that were forward of the required setback when they were going back in the location of a previous fence that had been there a long time, often because there's mature landscaping, landscape features in the backyard, other things like that, we've not wanted to make somebody, tear out and destroy, just so that they could move their fence back another couple of feet. I think we are also lacking some clarification on just the documentation that was submitted, and I will say that certainly doesn't have to be something that is drawn up by an architect, but just a little bit more clarity and accuracy on the site plan, that sort of thing.
Katie, do the guidelines support allowing the height if that's what was there previously?
So there's not anything in the, there's nothing in the guidelines that support grandfathering in a height or the location of the fence. When you put in a new fence, you're supposed to meet the guidelines. The commission has kind of exercised their discretion on placement in the past. I think we have felt more like when it comes to height, if you're putting in a new fence, you can adjust the height. That's not going to impact things like existing landscape features, et cetera.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the garage we approved earlier, how we were talking about if it was already built with a larger square footage, the new ones can meet that. So I was wondering if it was like a similar situation with fence height, which I guess is easier to adjust than an actual building footprint.
And I think when people have reconstructed an existing fence, or like certainly a portion of an existing fence, and they're matching what's there, there's some flexibility for that to say, you've already got this much fence that's 7 feet tall, you can keep that height. I think when it's a completely new fence, it's a little more like, all right, this is the time to bring it into compliance with the current guidelines.
Got it.
Can I ask a question about the application, just the way this attachment is reading? Was this applied for before it was put in? The way the attachment reads is as if it were applied for earlier. I didn't know if we were seeing an old proposal or, if it's something that had been submitted before and is being resubmitted.
My understanding is that this came in after work had already been initiated on the fence.
No.
Okay.
My husband put in the application, and then it was taking a while to hear back, and we had a fence that was literally falling down. So he talked to Daryl, and he said
this is Daryl, just so you know. That's
Daryl.
right here.
Oh, hey, Daryl. And he said that, if it was just a fence, he could probably approve it over, so, he had them start working on it because it was dangerous. As you
So
can see.
it was applied for, but you guys never heard back from city staff?
Right.
Do we have a CA where it was applied for, or an application where it was applied for previous to this month?
It did take me a few seconds or a little bit to get back to them because I missed their email. It still would have been at the October meeting, though.
Okay, so
yeah.
the timing didn't affect the construction of the,
Yes.
we didn't delay them 3 or 4 months of just not answering something?
It was after the September deadline. So yes, they still would have been here in October.
Okay. Anybody else have?
It's not terrible. I hate the idea, and I'm not saying that, it's in general. I hate when people do whatever it is they want to do and then come in and ask for forgiveness. That is just getting really, really old.
With all
Really
due
old.
respect, though, I mean, the fence was dangerous, and we, it's hard to communicate when you don't get calls back.
Sure.
I mean, and we had to do something with it.
Sure.
Whether we, shouldn't have done that design or whatever, I mean, okay, but, we had to replace the fence with something. And we were calling, we put in the application, we had to have something done like fairly soon, or
And-
somebody was gonna get hurt, or we were gonna get sued.
Sure, and I think that is a choice that every homeowner should make on their own accord. However, it does have to come back in front of us, and the coming in and asking for
understand.
forgiveness rather than permission to do it is a tactic that a lot of people use. And it's getting old.
I think the main thing is also, I agree with you completely. I would never have voted to approve on such a prominent corner something that's, in my opinion, very out of sync with historic character of the neighborhood. Thank you for the reminder that we have done it in Mesta, and probably in some other neighborhoods. I think, these corner houses, especially on the more prominent blocks, are treated a little differently. It's a blessing and a curse, but I would not have gotten behind the design of the fence where it is. It's never a goal to make somebody tear down their project,
No.
but.
You mean where it is? Oh.
Just,
Being on
we
the
do have
corner?
different rules for corner homes and different
I
standards
wish we'd have
and
known that.
expectations.
The main reason why I was wanting an accurate site plan, which is what I had talked with Mr. Harville when we had talked on the phone, but the importance of it is it highlights some of the features that are existing. So this fence was approved 20 years, the placement and the height, as you see in this bottom picture here, that was approved about 20 years ago by the HP Commission. But what I've noticed since writing the staff report, there is some mechanical equipment that is placed further forward. So staff might be in favor of keeping the fence in that location because it's kind of a burden to make them relocate existing mechanical equipment. So that was something that I was wanting you all to be aware of, about just the placement further
A unique
forward.
circumstance, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
I have a couple of questions for staff, specifically about the columns. In this fence style, what material would have been appropriate for those columns? Or would the columns have even been something that would have been appropriate based upon what was there and the guidelines?
So the guidelines for fence materials say that acceptable materials are wood, brick, stone, cast iron, iron, chain link, twisted wire, painted aluminum that mimics the appearance of cast iron, or a combination of these materials. We have approved, it doesn't say stucco, but we've approved a number of different masonry fences, which I kind of put stucco under that umbrella. I think with the stonework on this house, that is that lighter color, I don't know that we would have been opposed to a stucco fence column. I think it matches that detail of the house, and kind of fits with, it's neither called out as allowed, it's also not called out as prohibited, stucco. So.
And then my second question for staff would be the height of those columns, is that an issue? Yeah, the fence appears to be the same height. If you enclose the small area, I mean, it looks like it's consistent where the old fence had a small area of open air between the top rail. This one here just went all the way up, but the columns are taller than any part of the original fence. So what would be staff's position regarding the height of the columns? I mean, that's my main issue, along with the horizontal. I think it just is something that doesn't go at all. I agree with Sarah on that. But the columns themselves, coupled with all of that, I mean, you look at the fence that's next to it, and that is a lower fence with slightly taller columns, but it's definitely not near as intrusive or doesn't stand out like this other fence does.
So I'm checking the.
And I'm looking at page 3 of the handout when I'm looking at the two fences, both new side by side.
So I may have to ask our applicant for confirmation, is the wood portion of the fence 8 feet tall, or are the columns 8 feet tall? Because
The columns are 8 feet tall.
columns are 8 and the fence is slightly
6
shorter.
feet, 6 feet tall.
That's a 2 foot, sorry,
No.
that's a 2 foot difference between the top of that wood and the top of that column?
No.
So, just reviewing the standard fence application, we would have said at the front and the side, 8 feet's too tall. And everything, columns and fence, need to get at or below 6 feet.
Was there an 8-foot fence there previously?
Sorry?
Was there an 8-foot fence there
Yes.
previously?
Our record shows it was a 7'6" fence, as you can see in the photos.
was
there was
different
a,
sizes on
There
each.
was a kind of post that stuck up higher and had a transparent section at the very top.
Was the top of the transparent part 8 feet? So the total fence height?
I believe the total height was 7'6", or at least that was what was recorded in the previous CA.
Yes, the 7'6" was what was previously approved.
It's the visibility that's the challenge, and the kind of the high style of this. Had it been kind of a normal vertical plank wood fence with the columns, I probably would have said, yeah, it's a little outside the realm, but I can get there. Especially knowing that the old fence was 7'6", but I think the combination of all of this is what I really am struggling with. Individually, the pieces I think work, but when you put it all together, especially coupled with the forgiveness versus permission type thing, I struggle with it.
I'll make a motion if we're ready.
Are we ready?
Any members of the public?
Is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak on behalf of this particular project? No?
All right, as to HPCA-23-00119, I would move to deny with prejudice.
So with prejudice means they can't come back with the same, was it the same application for a year? What is?
Or
With prejudice means you cannot reapply for the same thing. You can come in with a new application.
then without.
Without.
Wait, you mean they can't apply for this exact same
Right.
fence? But they could apply for
Another fence.
another fence if it's, with prejudice then.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Woods, second by Commissioner Jordan. Please vote in prime gov. Okay, that motion was passed by a vote of 6-1. So the fence was denied with prejudice, but that means you can't reapply for the same thing for a
So
year.
we have to take the fence down? Is that what, replace it?
Well, I think, does it need to, I guess that would be a choice for you all to make, but does it?
They should contact staff.
Is it gonna contact staff?
So you have a couple of different options, from revising, altering the fence as it's been installed. You can appeal the denial to Board of Adjustment, but if you'll contact staff tomorrow, give me a call tomorrow, and we'll talk you through the different options with the fence.
Contact who?
Contact me. I'm Katie.
Okay,
Or Daryl, or Angela, any of our staff.
HP staff.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay,
you.
thank you. Okay, so we still have item number 6 on the list, Is the applicant present at this time? Perfect. Okay, so we'll move back to item 6, HPCA 2300115 at 2522 North Chartel Avenue.
I do have to recuse myself from this case because I'm married to the applicant.
Okay, Commissioner Whitley will be excusing herself.
I have to leave, but I can't.
We can't take any new materials today. Yep. Nope. Just tell us what you're going to tell us up here, and we'll listen.
Feel good, right?
Well, I had a lot of really great exhibits. This is, of course, a project that you've seen before. We've been here a few times.
Let me stop you for just a second, and we'll actually introduce the item.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
You introduce yourself. And,
Of course.
all that.
Sorry.
We kind of skipped right ahead. This is HBCA 23-00115 at 2522 North Chartel, Passaic Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Asa Highsmith, Common Works Architects for Micah McCann, M68 LLC, for a certificate of appropriateness to one demolished church elective. And
Asa Highsmith, 2117 Northwest 26th. This project we've been working on for a couple years. We've been in for a few different requests. We've been, we've worked very hard to figure out how to save this structure. We got approval to essentially renovate the structure to be 4 or 5 new apartment units. We've spent a good amount of money, a good amount of time trying to get there. The exhibits that I intended to present today were related to our structural assessment, which we've recently obtained. We've met with Katie and staff several times. The intent today in doing an informational meeting, and I apologize, I did not know I needed to get it here before. At Planning Commission, of course, people do that all the time, so just...
we work a lot harder than Planning
my
Commission
bad
does
there.
here.
This is a great exhibit, though, and honestly one that I had a few notes on. So this particular picture illustrates some of the, visually some of the issues that we uncovered in a fairly plain way. At the top of the tower on the corner that you see, there are 3 steel plates. Similarly, there's a steel plate just under the stained glass portion that you'll see. We have a history, photographic history of the building as far back as we could access. Those have been there since the earliest recent history that we have, which dates back to 2002. Those were the earliest photos we could find that weren't actually historic, like truly historic photos. We're not sure when that occurred, but there are obvious attempts. There's another steel plate right above the door frame there. There were obvious attempts to stabilize the building. At the time of purchase, we assumed that the issues were going to be manageable. We've come to understand after, fiddling with this thing for a while, that while generally the building foundation is in good shape, the primary issue of the project is that there is a central wall that exists just inside, which again had some cutaway views, was really pumped to show you guys this. There's a central wall that runs through the project that has no foundation that we can find. We think it was not installed or not included in the original construction. We assume this for a number of reasons based on our investigations in the building. If you come in now, you'll see, and actually, one of my offers today, because this was meant to just be an informational meeting, was to offer, I know we can't have a quorum, but anybody that would like to come visit the building, take a tour inside, we can, show you these issues directly. Essentially, the building is collapsing in on itself. So its structural issues are causing each of the main church walls to pull in. There has been obvious attempts in the basement to shore this up. There's some non-historic metal columns, just round, 4-inch round standard steel poles that are in there that are also failing. They don't appear to have any foundations under them. We've done investigations on that and again have found really that they seem to be just sitting on slab in the basement. That structure's, again, as it's peeling in, it's causing a lot of the, really the self-demolition that you're seeing on the facade. Again, our exhibits had some notes kind of laying out what we've seen in that regard. All of this will be presented in our full submission, of course. The extent of this has meant that essentially we find the building undevelopable. We're just being honest. I wanted to. The intent today was really focus on the primary issue that's caused us to reassess our approach on the project. We didn't spend 2 years attempting to make this work, to just come ask for demolition. It's the last thing we wanted to do. We've done everything we can, and at this point, could it be fixed? I think anything can be fixed with enough money. I know money's not a determining factor, but we're just being honest. Sure. We don't see any way to make this pencil. We don't see any way that anyone will make it pencil. We believe at this point that we could rebuild this building to a historic state in a cheaper effort than to repair it as is. The damage to the structure and its age and neglect has just taken it far beyond what I think is reasonable for us to be able to overcome at this point. As I said, we'd love to host anybody that would like to come put eyes on it and really get a tour of the issues. We'll have a full structural report with our full application. Part of our delay in getting to this point, honestly, because I think we talked with Katie about this fairly early this year, was an attempt to, I don't like to come to these meetings without staff support. Katie asked us to do a full history of the building as much as we could bring together, along with fairly detailed drawings of the project as a way to try to, preserve its history in some form into the future. We've done all of those things. Our clients, been happy to fund that effort because, from the beginning, we feel like we've shown good faith and done our best on this. I don't mean to, to have this sound wrong, so apologies if it does, but we feel like at this point with a denial, you're really just approving demolition by neglect. We don't see any way that this is going to get picked up by anybody. I think at this point our client wouldn't even be able to sell it likely, and because he can't afford to do anything with it, and no one's going to buy this building in its current shape. That's what I see personally. So I guess that's what I got. Happy to take any questions, but the main thing for us was really to get in front of you guys, give you a chance to understand the issues and address any questions before we come back for an attempt at a motion.
I don't know how we could really approve a demo today without the documentation that you were hoping to give us.
Well, and that's why this was just meant to be information.
But just kind of on that note, if the documentation supports everything you've said today, I do unfortunately understand. But jumping back to that original proposal, I think what was attractive about it from a preservationist standpoint is, how it married with the church and kind of the juxtaposition of this really modern structure on the side with the church. So I don't know how, do you just have any, while we're talking about it, info on how your plans will progress?
Well, they would change dramatically.
Okay.
We wouldn't, frankly, the project that was approved previously would not move forward either.
Okay.
If this gets demolished, we would likely draw up an entirely new proposal. And we'd be happy, I think, to even, accept that as a condition at this point. it's just, we thought we had something that made this project work and made preserving this make sense monetarily for the developer. We found it doesn't.
No, I appreciate you coming in and just with the presentation mindset. I'm sorry we can't review it today. I know if you can get it to staff, we can look at it before next meeting and have a more intelligent conversation at that point too. And the way you've described it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I can see why this is why this is an issue for you guys too. So, I mean, it sounds like a continuance is going to be in order, but I'm sure there's members of the public that wish to speak.
Well, and I have one question. Are there any pieces that can be preserved or retained and put forward into another proposal?
That was part of what I was going to show today, was essentially the extent of what would have to be fully replaced and what could remain. The extent of it is major. We would essentially end up fully rebuilding, right, there's only a single floor in the structure. It's essentially wide open. It does have, like, I guess, two balconies, but I'm not counting those. As a diaphragm, structurally, there's a single, kind of the sloped church floor where the pews sit. That would have to be fully rebuilt because of the damage that it's undergoing as it's, collapsing in. And because all of the four major walls of the structure are also tied to it as a structural piece, that's what's pulling in and causing those walls to slowly over time, Would you mind going back through we might get lucky and be able to visually see one of the issues. I think this one might, is there any way you can zoom in at the roof on that picture?
Just really quickly, did you mean materials or actual components of what exists? Like,
either or.
Okay.
Yeah, just wondered if there was any consideration to try to incorporate, materials, some features, I don't know, anything.
Well, we would love to reuse the brick. Unfortunately, I'll tell you that the condition of the brick is also not reusable. We actually discussed that at a previous approval. As an older brick, it doesn't have the same characteristics as modern brick. It's, the freeze-thaw cycle over time and water intrusion has really caused a lot of damage to these. Even pulling them off the building, they tend to break and crumble. So, if you have any ability to go back to that one roof shot and zoom in, I did want to point out one thing which was central to our exhibits we had. At the hip of the roof where those two connect, you can start to see where that sag is occurring. And again, that is directly held by that single wall that spans on the back side of the church. So to my left currently, the boarded up stained glass windows, the roof that then connects into the larger one, at the point where it hits it, you can kind of see that dip. It's a little bit harder visually in this to see, but the top roof then is sagging because that's collapsing. That's all that same evidence towards what we've discovered through our structural assessment, that essentially it's that center portion that's pulling in and pulling the walls with it. Each of the main three walls, the main visual walls on the south, west, and north with the stained glass portions fully replaced, the entire ground floor, and then of course rebuilding the roof. Plus the addition of the foundations that would have been needed in the first place. Further, there are two additional issues which I haven't really spoken to. One, the sheathing of the building. You can see that we're pretty sure that that's the original sheathing that's been exposed on the tower. None of this is acceptable per current code. We think it's specifically because of the double height of that frame space. These are 2x6s currently on a 16 to 18 inch spacing with what amounts to essentially like a half-inch board. The nominal sizes of these aren't even the same as we use today. So it does not provide the structural requirements to properly frame those walls, which is also an additional part of the problem. And to replace that sheathing, of course, would mean pulling all the brick off anyway, and then attempting to put it back on, which we feel like will create its own issues, of course. The framing of the first floor, in addition, as I mentioned, we'd have to fully rebuild that. So it really comes down to a lack of original foundations being included in the center of the building, the original sheathing and the original framing all being, below standard of what we would even build today. And I know there's the stereotype of we don't build them like we used to, but specifically on this project, we find that it's built less than we do today, unfortunately.
Are we just looking for a continuance on this right now? Wait, can I make a motion
This was
to do
just
that?
an informational presentation. We aren't even asking for
Yes, we continue.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, this is helpful.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Any citizens that wish to speak on this particular project? Okay. Motion? I'm sorry, go ahead.
And again, would love for anybody, if you want to take me up on a tour, would love to have you. It's a very interesting interior.
Okay, thank you.
I move for a continuance on HPCA 23-00114 to November 1st.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Gay and second by Commissioner Jordan.
You and the earlier girl.
Commissioner Gordon. Okay, that continuance was passed by a vote of 6-1 with Commissioner Whitley abstaining, and she will be joining us for the rest of the docket today. Which that takes us actually through all of our cases for individual consideration. Moving on to item number 7, which is other business. Katie, anything there? None?
Nothing to take any action on.
Anything
Under that item.
under communications and reports? We have 11 items under the administrative approvals.
No action required there. Please feel free anytime to reach out to staff if you see something listed there and you have a question about any of those items. We have no withdrawals and just 2 administrative closings.
Okay. Anything from City Council, Board of Adjustments, the Planning Commission?
Nothing to report.
Rita, anything from Municipal Councilor's Office? Excellent. Okay, so let's see. Our next regularly scheduled meeting date for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, November 1st, here in City Council chambers. New applications were received October 3rd. New information on projects continued from today's meeting for the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, October 10th. We have a regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission on Wednesday, December 13th from 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main Street in Suite 900. Are there any items from commissioners that they wish to speak about? Okay, any citizens that wish to be heard? Yes, sir, come on up. Name and address at the podium.
Hello, my name is Taylor Volk, 827 Northwest 17th Street. I wanted to ask a question, if I may have a quick moment. I wanted to see about a best foot forward and a little clarity on my application. One note to point out, there was a question about the 2 doors on my application for just the accessory structure. Historically, it had 2 doors. One of the doors led to the alley and was just a walked out into the alley.
Okay.
So I wanted to point that out. My best foot forward, my plans where they are now is as close to the historical accuracy of the original structure. So I wanted to make sure that that second door is acceptable and allowable with historic preservation, so I can have my best foot forward with my plans.
Sure. I would encourage you to submit the application to staff and find out what challenges come about then, and we can address those at that time. Yeah. I don't know that we can address it now without having
So
case
give
in
it
front of us.
to staff, and staff will talk to the commission. Is that right? Thank you for the advice on that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other citizens wish to be heard? All right. Our